grow them, to make the team more efficient, to make it harmonious, to make it challenging, to make it exciting, to make it inspiring. So they come to work thinking, man, I love this.
You don't actually start to get the money until you stop worrying about getting the money.
Yeah, with the noodle arms. That noodle arms, it's a Brooklyn Nine-Nine thing.
Oh, is that where that came from?
Yes, I'm a noodle arms. Anyway,
sometimes just being really good at a job doesn't mean you're going to be really good at getting other people to be good at the job.
Thought of it that way. It's like this pyramid, and then the further up you go, you say there that you help facilitate top and bottom, but the further up you go, it comes less bottom and more top.
Inspiration Nation, hello, Lee Kemp here for another week on the podcast, here with both Joe and Ryan. How are we doing today, guys?
Yeah, good.
Yeah, good, thank you. How are you?
Yeah.
Yes, not too bad, thank you. Look at that, another ask of how I'm doing. Feels like this might become part of the regular setup now.
I don't know.
Why
I'm a person with feelings as well.
Why not? Why not?
Right, we've got over our immediate technical difficulties now, haven't we?
Yeah, I think so.
A bit of faffing before setting up, which
Yeah.
kind of goes against our mantra, but we learnt from it and we pushed ahead.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think you're right there. That's weird. My recording's gone right up now. I don't know. It's going up and down. I don't know. Anyway,
Let's just roll with it, Joe.
Let's go.
People
with it,
listening have no interest in this whatsoever.
No.
Like to remind everyone out there, we are across all social media platforms at Listen2IN, Listen TOIN. Joe is at JN Coaching Tech, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, and I will not forget TikTok as well. JN Coaching Technologies there.
Introduce that one now.
You're doing good. Well, you showed me earlier, Joe, one of your videos blowing up to 1,000 views, I think.
Oh, that was interesting. The TikTok video, which is I don't really understand how it goes like that, but it's really strange how like one video I do like 70, then one go like 100, then 13, then 1,000. It just depends on whether it gets to different levels of.
As with everything, though, it's good to experiment with it, isn't it?
Yeah.
See how it works.
Yeah, I do like TikTok actually.
So we appreciate any support. Go on, give us a look, give us a follow, share what we do, and as always, ask as well, whatever platform you're listening on, if you can leave us a review, click that 5-star button if one exists. Mention to friends and family. Help support the nation.
Yes.
So, what are we talking about today, Joe?
So today we are talking about badges of honour. Now, I know Lee's mentioned it, I'm sure Ryan's talked about this before because I think it's something that I know where we've talked about before, badges of honour in terms of where people wear badges of honour around their place of work or in their businesses. And it is really around, when people have that badge, what does it give them? i.e. the badge of I'm a leader here or a manager there, and how they wear them, why they want to wear them. And I thought, we'd look at it because obviously we've got different levels here. I've been one. I'm one to a certain extent in the room, you're one, and Ryan, you're on a team actually with a leader, and then you probably do lead certain things as well in your, so you do your course and stuff like that. So I think it would be really interesting to explore, why do people become managers? Why do they want that title? Is it, is there a few things to this? Is it because people just like to be liked or want to be the vocal, or they want to be the person who, is seen to be the person, the boss, I suppose. Is it a prestige thing where actually I'm not really interested in managing that much, I just want the title, and really that's all I want, and I just want the money that goes with it. I'm not really interested in, making things better, or, if I have to do it, then it's something that, I'm going to have to do as part of my job, but it's not, the main focus of me getting was the money and maybe the title rather than anything there. Or is it that you've got a really big burning mission around that you want to get to a manager level or a leadership level because you want to influence, because you want to make things better, because you want to help your people grow, you've got a genuine interest, I think. So I want to try and maybe talk about how we can separate the titles from the monetary gain, and whether, so my view is to this is that, money's important, but it's not number one, it's always been my thing. It's only very sort of quite recently in my career, but in the last 7 or 8 years, where I've recognised that is so important. So not just going for a position because of the money, but actually because is it something you want to do because people don't recognise that actually being a manager entails so much different things. But do people wear the badges because they just want the badge, and they get the badge and they realise what's involved? And I've known people who have had like those titles and then they've stepped down. And people who still don't, and people see that and don't recognise and still want to step into those positions, but are still want to step into because of the money, not because they want to actually sort of have the responsibilities of it. So that's what I want to talk about really. So it's about that. back to the boss I said before, and also I want to talk about our technical people, why they get promoted into positions, and is that always the best way? I've got my own view on it. My view of it, no. I think it's a totally different skill. You can be good at your job, but I think in terms of managing, it's a different skill. It's good if you've got both, but it's a very different. You can't be try and be better than your team. Your team's actually got to be doing the work, and you've got to be sort of managing the team. It's one of the things that I would, back in my early days, I recognised very early on, and that businesses weren't doing that. I think they're doing it a bit more now, but it's a good thing. So that's my view. I thought, what do you think of that, guys? What do you think of that as a subject today? What do you think? Badges. About badges.
I think that managers or people a lot of the time look to go into management as maybe kind of a stepping stone. I think that yes, you mentioned three things there that definitely can influence them. Is it just kind of a natural progression? Is it a monetary value, or is it somebody that genuinely has an interest in bettering themselves and the people and the company they work for? But I also think that people use the role potentially as a stepping stone, maybe fluffing up their CV.
Fluffing up?
Yeah.
What do you mean fluffing?
As in, it isn't just I was in a single role with this company for 7 years. I was in a role with this. I was in 3 roles in this company over a space of 7 years. 2 of them management positions, and then automatically they're better than somebody else with a similar CV, but not that hasn't done that. That's what I mean by fluffing up their CV for reference. However, I think that the people that do best with badges are the ones that don't wear them. I think we've had this conversation in a kind of a different way on the podcast before, but the people that come to work and don't wear the badge as much, they obviously, when I say they don't wear it, I mean that they don't parade the fact that they're a manager, and they don't do the negative connotations that you mentioned when describing what people could do earlier. They come in, they lead their team, they lead the task or whatever it is they're doing, and they be the best person that they can be to support their team, which in my eyes is what a manager should do. Obviously they have higher other elements that they need to look after, but at an interpersonal level, they're there to support their team and get them any assistance that they may need as kind of a day-to-day kind of running. If that's incorrect, then obviously let me know, but that's how I tend to see it. I just think that those that don't wear badges and just kind of crack on with their job and do it are those that are best at it.
So what do you sort of see as, like you say, that don't wear their badges, so what sort of things would they sort of do in your eyes that we sort of like, hey, this really works for me, this is something that I get, I suppose, inspired by, since we're InspirationNation?
I feel that when somebody's looking to be a manager, they have to do it without the badges, therefore they have to do the job role before they get the job role. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of people, as soon as they sign the paperwork or get their adjusted contract, retract everything they've done over the past 6 months to get into that role and just sit in their comfy bubble of being a manager. Those, I feel, that don't wear the badge and actually carry on and do well are the ones that carry that trend on. They don't stop. They carry on doing what they were doing before, and they do the work that they did before they got promoted.
Nice. Okay. So like sort of carrying on, like they sort of on some sort of mantra around, helping, progressing people, wanting people to succeed, like and things like that, and getting their team to be almost like that. Not actually any context. So I've worked for 2 types of managers that will want to go and make you go and get cups of tea, because I'm the manager, go and get my cup of tea, and managers which actually let you play to your strengths. I recognise you have skills that actually are better than mine, but I don't mind that, because actually it brings a lot to the team. And actually one of the managers I had actually drew a circle, and they drew a circle, and then it wasn't I'm here, you're there. It's like we were just on a level, and they're like here, and we're just contributing to each other. And I thought it was really nice. It's how I see our team. I'm here, we're all at the same level. I'm having to manage these sort of things, but actually I want you to bring a lot of value and play to your strengths. And I think that for me is the sign of a person who's not wearing a badge. Of course, they've got the badge, but they don't, like say, they don't wear it, or even when someone came into the place, they would still do the things that anyone else would do. I don't think I'm not dealing with access, that's below me. They don't do that sort of thing. They say, well, I'm here, and the only one who can do it, I will help that person. And that's what I saw, and I thought that was a really good example. I think it's really weird that someone came in with a photocopy and they needed help with the photocopy and some query, and this manager that I won't mention here, but they just stepped in and like anyone else, because everyone else was doing stuff, and they just went in and helped. And I actually gave some feedback to that manager. I said I was really impressed with that. I thought, wow, that for me is. I thought that was demonstrating something that's a real key leadership skill, showing your team that actually you guys all got a lot going on. I'm going to step in. I'm going to do that just for that bit, not all the time, but just for that bit. And I thought that for me was like, I did sort of say to one in my way to say, I thought that was brilliant. I thought that was, if you could see you lead by example, I thought that for me was fantastic. So those types of things are really, really good. So that's my view on that and what you were saying, really. And I think leaders should be there to inspire their teams, like to find out what makes them tick, what makes them feel fulfilled at work. Try and make them as safe as possible at work, because the person who maybe owns the organisation is not going to be the person who actually manages them. So that person is going to be, so the manager is going to be the company's that person, not the overall person, boss, or the overall owner. And that for me is really important as well, that each level of managers or whatever leader recognise that they are the company to that individual, and they represent the company ethos, the company culture, and things like that. So that's what I think, and I think that's a really good lead in actually on that. Yeah.
And I think you touched on a really key point, which I think in any conversation I've ever had with people who talk about how to get on or get promoted or get more responsibility, whatever their drivers are, the number one bit of advice is you get the job by doing the job. So like you touched on, it's not like you sit there and then you get plucked out from wherever you are and someone says, right, you're the manager now, and then suddenly you just stop doing whatever you were doing and you start doing manager things and you put on your manager badge, like you alluded to, Joe. You get it by getting involved and doing things. And actually, for me, leadership, which is ultimately what that role is about, and I think the way workplaces are going, the way the world's going, it's far more about leading than managing. But leadership is a trait. It's not a job. You use that trait and you become a leader officially, and you become a manager job title in a business by being a leader. But that's a trait, and I think it's a trait you always have. I think it's a trait that can be grown and be developed. There was a big time where we talked about in previous episodes that I didn't really know what I wanted to do until I was in my early 30s, and that was leadership. Before then, the concept of leadership, and I talked about again how people open my eyes to it, didn't exist, and it was brought out of me and it was cultivated and it's grown, it's developed. So there could be people out there listening right now who don't do things they might count as leadership-y, that after listening to this tomorrow will start doing those things and start growing and start developing it. And I'm fortunate that I'm in a job role that really focuses around leadership, and I'm in a business that allows me a lot of space to do that. But a lot of the things that I do now, I was doing when I was sitting on the shop floor, so to speak. And you start to do those things, you become useful to the people around you and the people above you, and that's how you get involved in more things. And like you said, Ryan, there's a real risk of people switching them off. But really, I always say to people that since I became a team leader and then up through various levels of management, I don't perceive that largely my job has changed. The scale of it and the scope of it and who I interact with has got different, but the core fundamentals of being a leader have been there all the way through. And I think no matter what jobs I go on to do in the future, that will always be there because that's who I am. And then almost the responsibility and the job titles and the reward all comes with that. And then back to like you were saying, Joe, the whole subject of this show being around the badge thing, for me that, and I've seen it with people, and there's numerous people that I've sat down and coached through and coached out of badge mentality.
What would you say is the badge mentality to you?
So to me, people who are, and the phrase I use for it is badge orientated, and I'll put out there that I see it as a negative trait, are people who exactly that. They want the badge so everyone sees, I'm the team leader, I'm the manager, I'm the head of whatever, I'm the boss of this, I'm the supervisor of this, because they want people, they think then there's almost instant respect and acknowledgement because you've got your badge on, and wearing that badge is the most important thing. But then exactly as you two have both said, you've got to let go of that to actually be successful with it. I think people can get the badge by focusing on the badge, but they don't normally last with it. But it's people who aren't actually fixated on that, who that comes with them, because ultimately, being a manager isn't what the job's about, it's not what the company's about. Almost everything that exists in a business, you've got the person at the top or the shareholders who make money from what the business does, and you've got the people on the floor who do the job the business does, and everyone in between that is to facilitate those two things. But I think the risk is when you're badge orientated is you become fixated on those being an entity in itself. If that's not got too philosophical.
That's a good thought. I like that.
And I think that's ultimately that to me is what any business is all about. Is those two things, and it's about everyone in all those positions understanding that and being part of that ecosystem and playing their part in it. And generally, the people at the top who either start and run businesses or have the level of liquidity to invest in businesses are in those positions because they started off on that floor thing, and as they moved through, they completely understood that, because that's where that top level of success comes from.
Yeah.
And it's just having that mentality, because ultimately everything in leadership is about those people doing what the job is, because that's what the business is. If those people weren't there, everything else in the middle wouldn't exist.
I've never thought of it that way. We just have this pyramid, and then the further up you go, you say there that you help facilitate top and bottom, but the further up you go, it comes less bottom and more top, doesn't it?
That's it, and it's understanding what, the owner or the shareholders or whatever structure you're in, what is it they need to happen and why, and then supporting making it happen.
Yeah, obviously I know how businesses work, of course, but I've just never visualised it in that.
Oh no, and I'm not.
I'd
say this is in my head. It's something that I've been kind of crystallising over the last kind of 9 to 12 months or so, just in my view of the world. And I'm in that middle bit, and what my role is in that middle chunk. Yeah. And I say it is absolutely not about me. And I say that hand on heart because it's all about facilitating everything around it. And I think where people have struggled in roles, or where, and again back to that coaching thing, where people have come into roles and they've really seen it about them, sitting there polishing their badge that they're wearing and helping them understand why that's not the case. There's the irony, and it's back to, and it's, it shouldn't all be about it, but the way I used to talk to people about it is and it's financially, which ultimately is why we all go to work, etc., but you don't actually start to get the money until you stop worrying about getting the money, which is such a contradictory statement, but that's where it comes from, because as you've said in previous shows, Joe, if you're focusing on that and you're focusing on yourself when you're in a leadership role, straight away you're setting yourself up for failure because you're looking at the wrong thing. That's my little 2 cents on that.
No, I agree. And I think,
or 2 pence to be English about it.
No, you're absolutely right. And I think it's really funny because we started to read the book by Simon Sinek called Infinite Game. It's absolutely brilliant leadership book. I just read the first couple of chapters. But he talked about the finite game, the infinite game. There's 2 games. There's not the game that you're thinking about, but there is a game going on. So there's finite leaders who think about just winning, like competing against my other company, or until we get to like 100,000, whatever, £1 million profit. We've got to be the best, or we've got to get to that. That's a finite game. That's just when you get to that limit. That's it. The game's over. You either win or you lose. The infinite leader will just go, well, actually we're here for the legacy, we're here to make things better forever, and so that's a longer game. It never ends. You're always looking for like cultures, you're looking at culture, you're looking at how people can actually feel like involved in their work, that the business has a meaning, the business has a mission that people believe in, not just making profit, which is important, because without profit you can't continue.
It's about improving rather than
improving people's quality of life, improving the people, like you said, the people that are delivering for managers in the business, that actually they feel as they should see. For me, I do see those layers, but I think they should be more amalgamated, because we're actually one big team. Where everybody services everybody else, because without any of those elements, everything would fall apart. So how do we get those things together? And that's through really good leadership and none of this badge business which you see. So that's the infinite thing. The infinite thing is about having something that's going to be lasting a long time, and not looking at your competition, actually saying, because it's really interesting, because in the book he talked about Microsoft, he talked about Apple, and Apple released the iPod, and Simon went to Microsoft, so he went to Microsoft, and they launched a new iPod. It's not an iPod, it was a rival to the iPod, and obviously he went there, did his talk, and he went to Apple. and then he did his talk. And then he talked to, then he's going in a car to someone from Apple, one of the high executives, and he says, "Oh, tell you what, this new product from Microsoft, amazing, it's so good." He said, and all the Apple person said, "I'm sure it is." Because they're not focused on the competition, they're focused on the legacy, they're focused on actually making themselves better. It's against themselves, not against anyone else. It's making things better, making things even better. So, and I loved that, and I thought, wow, that's it. He didn't care. Like, of course they're going to be better because they're always good, but they're like, it's just about them being better all the time. And I think that how that relates to you, and I think you talk about leadership and actually being, for me, it's about first leading yourself. That's what I've said it before, and I think you lead yourself in a way, and people with badges, people who want badges aren't leading themselves. Their first thought is, it's me, I just want to get this or get that. It's not about actually, how can I get better? How can I improve things? It's more about, I just want to get to the position, once I've got there, I can just, like you said, I sit in a comfortable bubble now, I've done my bit, I can just sit there, happy men don't do that now, but I expect there are some that do that.
It's like all things, it's a mindset thing, isn't it? Because I think, that, and I agree on that, it's always about that improvement thing, and where I work with people, what you're looking for is not someone saying, "Oh, I'm doing better or worse than this person sitting here." It's, I've improved this, or actually, this has got worse, but I'm trying to understand why and I'm trying to improve on it. But again, like you said, that constant improvement thing. But when you start, especially when I did, and we worked the same place, Joe. No one tells you this. You just go in, you do your job, and there's almost a bit, especially when things are very results focused, that there's almost just a presumption that that's how things are until people open your eyes to these things and take you through it. So I still think you get a lot of that going on, but a lot of it comes from that understanding. And again, it's back to the fact that leadership is a skill in itself. And I know you want to talk about it ongoing, but I think that's the exact point, like you said, where sometimes just being really good at a job doesn't mean you're going to be really good at getting other people to be good at the job. And I don't think it happens so much now, because there is much more of an acknowledgement of leadership as a skill in itself. But, a very 70s, 80s, 90s type thing is that whole, once you're really good at the job, then you must be really good at telling other people how to do the job. And it is. I think it comes with that whole telling mentality of, well, I can do it, so you can do it type of thing. Which, I don't think is where we are, but I think people can fall into those traps just because, like everything else, you don't know until you know.
Well, it's funny because when I first came at that sort of thing, because I had that model to follow, that sort of model I had, so I was so lovely doing my leadership job and saying, well, I can do this really well, why can't you do it well? You should do it better, you should, I've taught you these things now, and I'm comparing my skills to theirs, and they haven't got them as skills, but why aren't you here, and that was wrong, because literally my thing should be saying, actually, how did you do from the previous week? Have you got better? Have you not got better? Have I got better? And I think that's where a lot of the problems come, is because the leaders that look at things like compete with their own teams, they're saying, well, I'm actually better than you, or don't want their team to be better than them. But actually, as a leader, you want your teams to be, like, if you're a technical, they should be better technically than you in terms of doing what their job is. You're there to manage them, to grow them, to make the team more efficient, to make it harmonious, to make it challenging, to make it exciting, to make it inspiring. So they come to work thinking, man, I love this. I want to be here. I feel safe. I'm contributing something that's greater. And I feel like I'm really, and I think the thing that's missing from a lot of business is the emotional engagement. People aren't emotionally attached to it. They just, well, I'm just doing this because a lot of times, a lot of miscommunication from the top leads down. Like, okay, so I'm doing this role. I don't know why I've got to clear these 100 bits of work. What impact does that have? They don't recognise the impact of that work, and I think that's where leaders that have the badge don't reflect that to people. People like these without the badge, like Ron was saying, will say, well, you clearing these 100 pieces of whatever you call it will have this impact. This is the impact you are making. They are able to communicate to those people that they are making an impact, and they are, when the company does well, it's because of their efforts. And I think that for me is, good leadership, and not that whole, badge thing we're talking about.
Absolutely.
So that's what I think.
Sometimes though, Joe, I do think if you're a member of something that's really good and it's really positive and strong, you should wear that as a badge. People out there, we want you to wear your Inspiration Nation badges. Head over to inspirationnation.org.uk. You can get yourself, as Joe is wearing, as you'd see in the YouTube video, Inspiration Nation hoodies. We have t-shirts, stickers, mugs, which I am modelling here, if modelling is the right word for a mug.
Yeah.
We have Ryan's reward yourself with a great t-shirt.
Yes.
Joe's T-Rex Arms t-shirt is up there as well for everyone. And as I mentioned last week, we have the Inspiration Nation tote bag up there as well now. So when you're out shopping, you can support the nation, inspirationnation.org.uk.
Brilliant.
Do you like that one?
Yeah, I did. That
Good
was very
segue.
good. It was a very good segue. It's a very good segue. So any thoughts on that, Ryan? What are your thoughts? Anything else that we sort of touched on? Or
I think it's good getting Lee's view, being that he's been in that role or been in a management role for a number of years. It's good to kind of see how his brain differs from what I would expect a ground level worker, if you like, to see these kind of situations. So I think that's quite a good insight to have had. I think that it's difficult because a lot of the time when we're talking about how just because you're good at the job doesn't mean you're going to be good at getting other people to do the job. A lot of people, I think, still have that pressure kind of thrown upon them. When they're good at a job and they work in certain areas, the person that's kind of higher up will look at somebody potentially and go, they're really good, so we need to get them into this position, get them to potentially looking to run a team or things like that. And I don't think it happens too much in potentially the areas that maybe we work in, but it definitely happened for when I worked in retail before. Kind of like senior managers would look at staff on the floor and go, well, they'd be a good manager because they're committed or whatever. And then it's difficult to kind of shake that manager's opinion of that person. Now, you may not think badly of that person, of course, but you may know that they wouldn't be best suited for a management position. So it's it's hard to get on board that you want them. It's hard to articulate, but it's hard to get on board with trying to get them into that role when you know that they wouldn't be successful in that role, and you know that it would have detriment to the company as a whole. Mm-hmm. And I think it's difficult to kind of have those conversations, I guess.
I think there's risk in that scenario, not just detriment to the company, there's detriment to the individual, because over-promotion is a thing. And you get it, and it's actually someone who did a bit of mentoring for me a few years ago. Again, I highly advocate, as per previous episode, something to go out and do. Who was talking to me about, and them saying they've done it before, but where they see the problems where it happens, where people get over-promoted because someone's kind of pushed them through, but not necessarily given all the support that comes with it. And then that person will, or could, and examples have, failed in doing that, and then they suffer from it, not the people who've led them into that position in the first place. And it is a risk that can happen in that sort of scenario, which is where, and it's difficult if you're the one who's, like you said, getting that pressure put upon you, because you don't want to come off. I suppose there'll be a perception that it could affect you negatively if you refuse that sort of responsibility and stuff, which comes back. I think one of the biggest problems that works against this, which we kind of tiptoed around a bit, is it's a cultural thing. Because I think it should be okay to say, actually, I'm not sure that's for me, and that to open up a conversation to find out why, and maybe it is the person didn't understand, or maybe it's not, and that shouldn't have any negative effect. But it comes back to, again, as leadership being kind of a cultural thing that's trained and understood and developed, rather than, like you said, you've seen retail environments of that, oh, you're quite good, right, you can go off and do this over here now.
Yeah.
Which it doesn't always translate that, being a good worker doesn't mean you necessarily translate that into leadership, or if it does, that acknowledgement that that's a whole new skill set, and you can't just plop into it and suddenly be great at it without that development.
Yeah.
And the understanding that stuff will go wrong. I've talked quite openly that when I went from doing the job to leading people doing the job, at first I had absolutely no idea what I was doing, and it wasn't until that development started that kicked in.
Yeah, I think there's a lot in that. It's funny you saying that, because what happens is managers breed managers, right? So if you've got someone who says, I think that person would be good in that position, that's their mindset. So what happens, you have the culture where that is what's been done. So that's
Yeah.
what you found. It's hard to change that, especially from a ground level up. You can see maybe from a ground level that maybe that isn't the right person, because you on the ground level know the traits of this type of person, because manager are about communication, bringing people together, and you think actually it could be quite divisive. Actually, there's quite a few people who find that quite divisive, and having that in a position of power, that, like you said, can start to destroy the culture. And that comes from, like you say, that's the problem. You get managers promoted, and they want to promote in a similar way, and you then get the pattern, and it's hard to break that once you've got in a culture. But I think, how do you break the culture? You see it usually from the performance of the team, performance of the business, the disharmony, and that's where where business have to take the temperature of, I think, the people doing the work.
Yeah.
But not just doing the work as a tick box, making sure they understand when they get that feedback, doing something with it and trying to address it. And that, again, that's where leadership comes in. It depends on what type of leadership culture you want in your business, or you want in your organisation, or you have got in your organisation. It's always very difficult to influence leadership from the bottom up. I find it's the hardest, if possible at all, because you've got to have some. If you did want to, you have to have some sort of supporters in that leadership position for that to happen. But if it is like that and you are in that, that's a difficult one to change. I would say that now. If you are in a situation where you've got a cultural thing where it is difficult, you're struggling with it, then you've got to make decisions as to whether you can try and influence it or whether you need to move on. That's one of those things, I think. But you soon see whether it suits you or not. But this whole thing about leadership is definitely a whole different skill set, a whole different mindset. And I say, when I went into leadership, it was totally different. When I went in that course, and I've done a couple of episodes before, where it's such a big skill. But it could definitely be learned though. And I don't buy into that thing that leaders are born. I think you're born with certain strengths, but I think this thing can be learned. All these things can be learned.
Yeah.
It's skills. It's absolutely. It's like everything else.
I don't think it's something that you're just not cut out. But I think you can. You just got to be that self-awareness. I think people can. They just got to be. I think it starts with you. I think it starts with your self-awareness and where you are, where you want to be. And I think fill yourself up with skills first, and then how do you then, like that thing about being a leader is about how do I help people without being a leader, or have the title or the badge first. How do I do that first? And leading by that example. So I think there's a lot to be said in there in terms of that. So how do you think then this all feeds into how, I suppose, I'll throw a question out to you guys, how you think someone on the ground, I found it we're very different things, but how do you think people on the ground can, if they find they've got a leadership or a culture of leadership which doesn't help them feel fulfilled or emotionally engaged, how do you think they could move forward with that to try and get it to a place where they could? Do you think it's one, talking to leaders and trying to put things out, or is it just, you think it might be more of just a self thing and how you perceive it?
I think a bit of both in there. I think that the core of it is the self thing, because there's people can do things to influence where you are. Hopefully, if that is the feeling, people have got people in the business they can talk to and share thoughts and see what they can do to help kind of add in their viewpoint and see how much it's taken on board. But I think ultimately for people, when this is through current jobs, future jobs, whatever's going on where people are, the ultimate thing that sits in this is about the reward structure, because back to the badge thing and the job title thing, that all comes from that want to be rewarded by someone else and have that given to you, which means you're always at the mercy of whatever structure you're within, and I think you're potentially looking for the wrong thing. Acknowledgement is very important, and we've talked about this from previous things, and it's really important that businesses have a structure that rewards people. But again, if you're in a workplace, there's only so much you can do to influence that, and I think it really comes back to that self-reward thing, exactly like you were saying, Joe, with skills. Actually start focusing on what you can do, what skills you can develop where you are, where you want to be with things. How, if you can't directly influence the culture, how can you positively impact those people directly around you for whatever method that is? And start to learn those skills, start to develop those things, start to try and support people whatever way you can, because that will grow you as a person, and hopefully that can either start to influence things, and the more people that are doing that, the more it influences it, or it will just start to lead you down to a path where you get to places where that sort of thing happens, because everyone gravitates to people like them, and people similarly gravitate. And if you become more like that person, you'll start to move into those environments. And like you said, on the whole, then how you feel rewarded and motivated is because you're starting to do those things for yourself. Like we said a lot, it's that waking up thing and taking control, isn't it? And I think everyone can do that, and either it will create an influence or it will start to open doors and avenues and just give you eyesight to see where you can, fit into things.
I like that, and I think you're right. It's about you, how you perceive it, isn't it? I think what are the lessons you can learn from where you are at the moment? What can you pick up? It's really interesting because I was listening to a podcast by Jocko Willink. I know this one is brilliant. I think the Navy SEAL does jiu-jitsu and all that. And
just like me.
Yeah, just like you do, with your noodle arms. And that noodle arms, is that Brooklyn 99 thing there?
Is that where that came from?
Yes, I've got noodle arms. Anyway, gone off track. But Jocko Willink was talking about, I loved it, it's a great thing. He says, well, leaders you just lead yourself. Like, if you want to be a leader, like if your manager won't take responsibility for something, you take responsibility. If they can't solve the problem, you solve the problem. You go to them with the solution, and you go, well, actually, and so I think there's a gap. So for me, if someone is not feel that they're being managed that well, what are the problems? And is there anything you can do to solve the problems and help people? Like if there are people struggling in your team and you're good at something, can you help them in that particular track? Can you help them? And that brings the team up. And so it's hard though, it's really difficult when it's the management structures, they're not that supportive. But you could be the example, and that could, like you say, create an influence. If not, the worst thing that could ever happen is you just get more skills and you can take them elsewhere, right?
Yeah.
And I would
you just get better. Whatever you do, you get better. This is something I talked a lot about people in my conversations. Like, whatever you learn, no one can take that from you. That's it. Whatever you do. So people say, well, I don't want it. People say things like, well, it's not my responsibility. I'm not the manager. I'm not a. But what do you want to be? Like, if you want to get on, then if you take responsibility, then you're going to get those skills. No one can take them away. Yes, you'll not get, like, because, well, I'm focusing on, I'm not getting paid for that. Why should I think of that? But actually, if you start doing, like Lee said, and what you were saying, start doing that job, those rewards will come because you'll naturally get better. Because the only way you get rewarded is by adding value. What value do you bring? What do you bring to the table? If your skills are rarer than someone else's, naturally that's going to be worth more in the marketplace. So I think people just got to remember those types of things, and whether you've got good management, bad management, what your perception of bad and good is, because lots of different ways. We've talked about something that's quite good or bad, but that's just our view, right? A lot of people could say, well, actually, I don't agree with that, and that's fair enough too. But what works for you? You want to be in that sort of culture, that environment that works for you.
Absolutely.
And it's a very individual thing, a very individual cultural thing. It depends on your background, how you believe the world works in your perception of where you are.
I would say back to that one bit of advice, and that's kind of the practical output of it. I'd say the number one thing that's got me where I am in the workplace I am at the moment is doing that solving problems thing, because people want that to happen ultimately, and the more you're doing that and the more people see you can do that, the more you'll be valued for that. And I would say that above everything else is the number one thing. But what's really important that comes with it, and I think it kind of goes hand in hand with that negative connotation, the badge orientated thing, is make sure you understand the problems. Because quite often I've seen it before with people where they've kind of self-destructed, if you like, the badge orientated thing, is it's almost like they've been waiting for their moment to be like, right, now I'm going to show how everyone so it should be done. Right. And you go in and you start solving what you see are problems, but they're not what the business sees the problems to be. And actually you end up creating more problems and solving them. So it's really important, I think, to make sure you, even if you're solving problems, that you've got enough that you can understand, right, is this going to help the business or is this going to help me? Again, back to that outward thing rather than inward thing.
Yeah, so that you're saying that what is the business aiming? Aligning that sort of cultural performance thing, align what the business needs, and if there's only underlying sub issues, then do they relate to that particular problem?
Yeah, and are they, because it comes with you what you might perceive of a problem may not actually be a problem because you don't see the whole picture.
Yeah.
And it'd be, in an ideal world, there'd be enough communication going on that everyone can see that, but you don't get that in all workplaces. So again, either it could be the business's fault because I didn't understand that, or you, again, and you think you have to do it, you make it your business to understand that picture. You ask questions, you poke and you prod and you experiment a little bit So again, so you make sure you're doing the right things in the right direction, which again, back to how you resolve this, that's in your gift as someone sitting there. The more you get yourself involved and you get in that space, the more you've got that potential to be able to influence things.
I think it's great. I think it's really motivating that, like, because that whole thing of getting yourself into those spaces to help, really, isn't it? It's like you're trying to help, aren't you? So like if you're like, so say you're on a team and you want to get into that, so what are you saying? You're saying speak to your manager, what are their problems?
That's
it.
They
see the big picture.
Find out.
What are your problems and how can I help you solve your problems? Is that what you're saying?
That's it. It's just that ask. And if you can go back and exactly like you said and say, right, I've been thinking about this, I think we could solve it if we did this, you're taking a problem away from someone. And I think that's how you can start to take a bit of ownership and control and support things.
So, I was having it's weird how these things happen. I was having a little bit of a heart-to-heart conversation with an outgoing manager this week, who did 2 interviews for me being promoted earlier this year. And I said to him, I was like, come on, now you're going, you can be totally honest. What is the biggest thing that you think I can do to help myself going forward?
Good question.
And he said pretty much what you just said about looking at ways to solve problems will get myself more in the spotlight to look better going forward. And my response to him was, I want to be doing things like that, but I think my words were, I'm scared to ask for opportunities or ask people for problems. So I get a lot from my team leader to do for him that then gets upward reported to pretty much your level, isn't it really, Lee, to be honest? But I do quite a bit for him throughout the week that will ease his job life going forward. However, when you see that, or whoever reports into Lee sees that, they don't know that I've done that. So my point was that to them, it doesn't look any different than what my team leader would have done. So I said to the outgoing manager, I said, it's difficult, I think, for me because I don't necessarily have the confidence at work to pretty much approach that outgoing manager's position and say, I never did it with that outgoing manager. I never had not the courage, I think, but I never had the confidence to kind of go up to them and say, you know, well, look, I've got this going on. I want to achieve this. You know I do because you've interviewed me for it. Have you got anything that you want me to pick up for you that will make your life easier today, this week, whatever? And there were a couple of reasons for that. One, I wasn't that confident, and 2, I didn't want to step on my team leader's toes as well, and kind of get in the way of anything that they would be doing or any plans ahead for me as well. And whilst, if I asked that question, I would be happy to work in my own time to do it or find a way to do it, I just never really found the right time or the right way to ask the question. And it wasn't a case of that I didn't want to do it and I don't want to do it or anything like that at all, because that isn't the case. But I just want it to come across in good. I always wanted it to come across with good intentions, and I was always concerned that it never would. So that was another reason why I never did it. And I just think that going out and finding solutions to problems is a good thing. Is something that we've heard it here, and I heard it earlier in the week. It's something that I will look to do, obviously in the right way. But I don't know if I would still have the confidence in myself to approach people and say, no, this is a thing. Have you looked at this? Is there anything else I can do to help you? Don't make those kind of questions. And I think it's just a case of once I do it once and once I commit to it, I think it'll be fine. It's just having the right time to do it, I guess.
And
I've ranted a bit, but it was just.
So that's a lot of things I was about finding the right time, because there's never usually the right time.
Yeah.
It's a hedging.
There's always things that are happening.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think being a little less, my advice would be a little less linear or direct with that. So the number one thing which you're doing, it sounds like is the right thing,
Yeah.
is number one, it is about supporting who's in the direct line. So either people you work alongside or your team leader. That's the primary bit. And I would say, don't be naive to think that it's not noticed if that's happening, if that's going on.
Yeah, that's probably the wrong way to have
and
put
you'd
it.
have people who report that stuff up and talk about it. But
Yeah.
more so, especially when you are and people listening work in larger organisations, not every single thing that everyone does is accounted for, but it all starts to build up over time and starts to create a pattern, and people start to get noticed in certain spaces. And more so, it's building up your skills for immediate and future when there's conversations about what have you done to answer that sort of stuff. But also, I'd say it's not as linear as then going and saying, right, what's a problem, can I solve it? Or this is a problem, here's a solution. But I'd say quite often people don't realise what the problems are, because you get stuck in a day-to-day and things happen and you create ways to work around things. And it might just be the more things get mentioned or frustrations get noticed, you might think, at yourself, there might be a better way to do this or an easier way to do this, or, discussion from people in other teams or other team leaders, what are common things people see, and then coming up with what if we just did this way? So it might not be as direct as someone articulating a problem and you having a solution or going and finding it. It might just be through conversation of picking up things. You can then suggest ideas that can start to improve things, and then start to push things up the line as well. So there's lots of ways to do it, but it is, especially in larger places or busy workplaces, people often don't even realise what their problems are. Yeah. And again, that's when you can start to add value. And the sell is, if we did this could make our life easier. Or if we did this could make your life easier. Or if we did this, the team would benefit from it. And presenting those ideas and starting to influence how things are, which I think is the important thing for everyone out there, to start again getting in those places and adding that value, because then it will come to a thing. And we used to talk about it forever ago now, Joe, when you were my team leader, and it wasn't until a few years ago you said it to me, but you said the view was that I was a safe pair of hands. So if you had something that needed to be done, you knew you could come to me, give it to me, and I'd be like, don't worry, Joe, I've got it. And over time we built up a confidence that you knew that I had that thing. Yeah. But that didn't come from me directly looking to solve problems. It just happened because I was a problem solver and it's what I did, or I was someone that if you gave it to, you knew that if I had questions I'd come back to you or something like that. And it just, over time, it built up that trust.
Well, it's about trust. It was like, because we had this thing going, weird thing going together, or whatever it was. We had a bit of a pet project, which wasn't sort of the mainstream anyway, and it was like it would do or die, wouldn't it, on that?
Yeah.
And so I had a chat with some of the teams, some of my members that I think would really like, and Lee was just like, the reason I trusted Lee with it is because when I mentioned the idea, he's like, I love this. I could see it in his eyes, like, I love this. He's like, okay, I'm going to give it to you in that case. I'll give you that piece, because that for me that's all I needed. And when Lee said to me, and I think, of course, if I'd given it to anyone, I totally bombed out, then I'd be a bit concerned, it didn't quite work, so why wasn't it work? But it did work. So maybe you need support or whatever, but it worked. But that's what I looked for, and that's all I needed. And actually, remember your words were, when I suggested this thing we were going to do, he said, I couldn't sleep last night, and I thought, that's a very good sign. And that was the sort of thing, excitement, and that's what I look for. So for me, if I see someone doing that sort of displaying that, so when you said about the right times, I was thinking one-to-ones. So when people go to one-to-ones, I know that people have them, and a lot of times I don't know if it's a bit unfair, but some people use it as a little bit of a tick box and off it goes. You can use that time for you to really leverage something. Like you could say, well, I've spotted this, or find out a bit more about it, and bring something to this thing which has your idea out on paper or something. Well, I've prepared this, and have a really good conversation about it. I think those are the best places to put those places. Yeah. But because people go on, a lot of time we'll go to the one and they're not prepared. It's we'll go through the motions. It's not emotion. This is your opportunity, and I think that's when I'm looking from a sort of team perspective, a member, where that self-leading is going in with something that's really exciting. So I'm really excited about this, and you might as well going to say, no, we're not solving that problem yet, but I can see what you're saying. But they might say, well, I've got this. And now you've got some new information, and you can say, right, okay, so this is it? And then you can work with that, and then you build the relationship, and that's where you're the go-to. Then you go to, can you just resolve that, and that's how it builds. But I think one-to-ones are not just by management. I think as team members are very undervalued. I don't think people go really well prepared and go with everything. I think some of them don't really know how to run them effectively either. where they can get the most. It's a brilliant time to leverage someone's passion, leverage someone's motivation, leverage someone's what they want to do. You can really leverage them in that moment. But I think it's the other way as well. I think people go to me and think, well, it's going to be about this or this. I think both sides can leverage that. So if you're a manager or a team member, it doesn't matter. Leverage that one-to-one time. Show in that moment where you're off. The manager showing the team member what's available, and the team member showing the leader, this is what I'm about. This is what I'm passionate about. This is what I can bring. You know, not just securing a right. We get the job interview, and you get the job, and you think, oh, that's great, except for a bit, and then you then need to find that next level, and that's down to you having those conversations.
Being authentic, I think, like you talk about a lot, is it's got to be, if you're really forcing yourself to do behaviours to get to a place, it's not going to. It's got to be you, and it's got to be what you want to do. And ultimately, it's not about one moment or one conversation or one event.
No.
It's about you just living that mentality. Because way back, and it's funny, not thinking of an example really, but that time when you and me were working together, then I knew I wanted to get on, and I knew I wanted to do more than I was doing, but it wasn't like there was a specific goal. I was just being me every day, and that led to things, I suppose.
Yeah, well, you were always a high performer, weren't you? Like, performance-wise, you were. It was just that next bit, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It's that next bit.
That's what I say. I think it's about just what you. Back to the starting bit is leadership is behaviour. It's not a badge or a job title.
Definitely, I definitely agree with that. Wow. Oh my word, I think we've come quite well on that one.
Yes.
It's been good. So I think that's really good. I think, well, I know I write these little bits and pieces, but we've gone, we've done all the bits about technical pieces.
I squint my eyes at the time and see we're running at about 50 minutes, which is good.
That's
now.
Brilliant. But I think the whole thing is, Lee, you've really coined it on there, and I think, touching it a little bit, is that it is about you. What gets you excited? What is it? And bringing that, Lee, stop that.
We nearly got a whole hour there, Joe. Right, come on, back on track.
Oh. Okay, so it's about what gets you going, right? I know Lee's thinking about all these other things going on now. We've lost him now, right? We've actually lost him. But it's about...
he could be professional.
You can get it for about 50 minutes, and after that, he's gone. And so,
I'm on a downward slope now.
That's it. But yeah, so I think it's about... I think it's all self-awareness, isn't it? I think all these things we talk about does come round and back down to that, isn't it? But yeah, I think we've done that one. It was a good one, that. Any final thoughts, gents, before we sign off?
I'm good. I think I'm wrapped up. I need to remind people, listen to IN, listen TOIN across all platforms. JN Coaching Tech as well, across everywhere, including TikTok, because I forget to mention that. Again, please leave us, if you like what you're hearing, leave us positive reviews, share our stuff on social media, mention to friends and family. We appreciate everything. And don't forget to head over to inspirationnation.org.uk to get some fantastic Inspiration Nation swag. Yes, I was just looking for the reaction on Ryan's face when I use that. Thank you everyone for listening. We're back again next week, and I will count us down.
Go on in.
3, 2, 1. Inspiration Nation. Catch you guys later.
If you click here, you'll catch episode 43 of the Inspiration Nation podcast, which is your year in review, how to have a most amazing year. And if you click here, subscribe, I'll be really most appreciative. So go there, we'd appreciate it. It says Inspiration Nation, and I'll see you there.
I think handsome. Mix it up. Got my mug like that.
Yeah, lovely.
That's resident on my desk now.